What is good, fight fans? We have arrived at UFC 326 fight week. The BMF belt is on the line. Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira are headlining the card, and I cannot wait for this fight. It's a rematch of a completely botched fight that these two had back in 2015, where Oliveira had to retire in round one because of an esophagus injury. Max got the dub, but honestly, it's hard to really read too much into that fight. Both of these guys have gone on to forge legendary championship winning careers since then. Both guys have evolved and improved and built their own legacies, so it's sick that we finally get to see them run it back at the tail end of their careers. Let's hope this fight isn't cursed too, because the undercard is good but not great. Let's have a look at the card overall. For a pay-per-view without a legitimate title on the line, this is not the best card. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some bangers on here, but I feel like this card was just sitting there for a long time waiting for a big co-main event to be added. That's all this card needed. Instead, it just never happened, and we have to settle for Caio Borralho versus Reinier de Ridder for 3 rounds in the co-main. That's a solid fight, but at 3 rounds, it feels like more of a feature fight to me. I feel like the UFC has wasted an opportunity to stack this card with a big BMF number 1 contender fight, if that makes sense. The UFC is usually pretty good at putting the next contender on the same card as the champ, so that we get a big moment where the winner calls for his shot and they do some cool shit with the crowd cam, or even get the guy into the ring in the case of like DDP versus Izzy or Paddy versus Ilya. Something tells me the winner of Caio Borralho versus RDR isn't going to be taking on the winner of Max versus Charles for the BMF next. So, where is the BMF contender on this card? They should have had the Benoit Saint-Denis versus Dan Hooker fight on this card, or something like that. Paddy versus Gaethje for the next shot at the BMF as the co-main of this card would have been sick as well. But of course, they needed to put that paper-ass title fight on UFC 324 just to sell new Paramount subscriptions. Honestly, this feels like a bit of a weak, slap-together card just so they can buy some time for fighters to get ready for the White House card. Think about it. As if they don't want a BMF fight on the White House card. They get the Max versus Charles fight done now, start of March. That leaves all of March, April, May, June. The White House card's going down in early July, I think. So that's 4 months for the winner of this to get ready for the next BMF fight as the co-main or feature fight of the White House card. Makes sense to me. So the UFC probably just thought, well, people want this Max versus Charles fight. It's big enough to do numbers. It's just as good, if not better, than some of the other non-title pay-per-views we've had, like Colby versus Jorge and Max versus Dustin. So why the hell not? I get it. And look, I'm hype as fuck for Max versus Charles. I just think the rest of the card is a bit slapped together, and I don't see a real solid structure of a card here. Just a bunch of random matchups without a ton on the line, and there's still random fights being slapped together for it as we speak. I'm not complaining too much though. It is better than the UFC Mexico travesty last week, and there's some solid fighters on this card. I can see there being a fair few finishes on this one as well. So maybe it's just one of those cards that does the BMF belt justice and becomes a hood classic. My guy RDR is on the card, obviously. We got Chiwiwis on here. That Rob Font fight's finally happening after about 3 cancellations. Weird that it wasn't on the Mexico card. That's another reason I feel like they've just slapped this thing together to fill spots. Uncle Michael Johnson versus Drew Dober. That's going to be a banger. So is RoboCop versus Brunno Ferreira. We got Cody Garbrandt versus Zhao Long. Jonte Dodson's going to beat up Cody Brundage, as is tradition. Then, honestly, there's just a bunch of completely random-ass fights that I did not expect to be on this card, even on the early prelims. Guys like Sumuraerji, Nyamjagal Tumendemberel, Dr. Nurgozhay, Gaston Bolanos, Rodolfo Bellato. It's like they just went, yeah, let's just get the guys with the hardest names to pronounce, and then let's also get a few Codys. Like all 3 Codys of the UFC are fighting on this card. Well, I don't know if that's all of them, but I swear all these Codys seem to always fight together. It definitely has happened before. Fucking shit name, by the way. Yeah, I don't really know what to make of this card. It's either going to be a fucking banger or a complete letdown. Let's hope it's fire. Plenty of MMA math to discuss here and some cooked picks to make. So if you're excited for this card, make sure you smash that like button like it's Charles Oliveira's esophagus. Comment who you think's going to get it done in the main event, and subscribe to Punch-Ons for more chaos. If you don't,
you are gay.
UFC 326 full card predictions. Vamonos, hombres. Let's punch on. Let's start with the main card and the detailed picks for those ones. The main event, of course, is Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira for the prestigious BMF belt. Honestly, kind of a paper belt that should have been once wrapped around the waist of Belal Muhammad. But let's be real, both Max and Charles are Ilia Toporia's bitches. I won't rant and rave too much about the BMF belt, but I honestly think the UFC could be doing this so much better or just not at all. I'll save my thoughts on it for another video. I'm not going to let it get in the way of the fact that we are finally getting Max versus Charles, and for me, this fight makes up for all the mess on the rest of the card. If the undercard was just a bunch of unranked jobbers debuting from the PFL, I'd still be making a video and frothing over this main event. I mean, how can you not be excited for Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira 2? Easily two of the most entertaining, beloved fighters in the UFC, and there is absolutely no universe in which these guys fight twice and both fights suck. I refuse to believe that we are in that reality. This one is gonna be a banger for as long as it lasts. Now, I watched their first fight back, what there was of it, and even though both guys are heaps better and a bit different nowadays, you could see the blueprints of their styles were there already. Charles was standing nice and upright, looking to get inside the range and land straight shots and knees, and then shoot in for the clinch and like knee Max to the body, and then he looked to shoot a takedown when the opportunity arose. Max was just being Max, skating around the octagon, in and out, popping the jabs, staying long, throwing spinning back kicks to the body, shucking off the takedowns and trying to keep it on the feet. The problem was, after Charles failed his first takedown, he immediately tapped out due to that esophagus injury, and we didn't get to see how the rest of the fight would play out. A crying shame that, but at least 11 years later, we get to right those wrongs. I gotta say though, I'd be really worried if I was a Charles Oliveira fan, which I am, a huge one, but I'm also a massive Max Holloway fan, so my emotions are a bit mixed about this one. But I'd be more worried if I was a Charles fan. There's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, even though I don't think their first fight is all that relevant, I've got to say, Max was looking good stylistically. He was dodging Charles' significant strikes, landing his own, and he was already up 14-5 on significant strikes. Charles had missed a bunch and failed a clinch exchange already and a takedown. Number two, Max has insane takedown defense, like insane. 83% takedown defense over a very long career, and he's fought some decent grapplers like Volk and Ortega. Not a heap of really legit grapplers though, I must say. Charles actually may be the best pure jiu-jitsu guy that he's ever fought, but Charles isn't really a power takedown guy. He's more of a guy who likes to pull guard or scramble for positions and clinch up and work to the back. Charles has been landing some more technical takedowns lately. He took down Garbrandt and he tried to take down Topuria but got reversed. So I can definitely see a few issues for Charles Oliveira getting Max down. And that leads to point number three. Max's striking is just on another level. I don't really need to prove this to you. Most significant strikes landed in UFC history and in a single fight, I'm pretty sure, against Calvin Kattar. We know how good Max is on the feet. I don't think it's controversial at all to say he's better than Charles on the feet. Maybe Charles has a power advantage and possibly like better Muay Thai, but even then, I don't know. Max is just so good at fighting his style of fight, and if Charles can't execute a grappling or a clinch-based game plan, he's stuck on the feet with Max fucking Holloway, and that is not going to go well for you. Now, I do believe Charles has a path to victory. This is Charles Oliveira we're talking about. He could knock Max out, even though Max's chin is legendary. It did kind of get cracked by Ilia, but then again, Ilia is just built different. But Max can be cracked, and Charles has cracked many a man. Pause. Charles obviously has a big advantage on the ground. Max is no slouch in the grappling, but he definitely prefers not to be there. And Charlie Olives is slicker than oil down there. He's got wicked rear naked chokes, guillotines. If Max makes a mistake, he slips, he gets tangled up, or he somehow enters Charles's world, it's danger signs. There's absolutely a world where Charles Oliveira gets pieced up on the feet, but finds a clinch and wrestles Max to the cage and takes the back like he did against DP. But I don't see it happen in this one. It's tough to pick against either of these guys, but I'm definitely leaning towards a Max Holloway win in this one. There's just too many things working in Max's favour here. The legendary chin, the legendary output and volume, great counter grappling, better power and conditioning at lightweight, coming off a few amazing performances. Charles just got slept bad in his last one. Yeah, I think this is looking like a Max Holloway win, fellas. He can win by TKO at any time. He can win on points. Obviously, Charles has a submission threat, but I don't see this lasting long enough for Charles to fluke a submission win. I'm feeling a Max Holloway masterclass here, boys. I think he gets it done by TKO, middle rounds of the fight. Charles's chin could be cooked, and even though Max doesn't hit anywhere near as hard as Ilya, he's definitely going to find the chin of Charles at some point, at many points, multiple times, and I think over the course of 5 rounds, if Max can keep himself safe from the submission threat, he takes over, pieces Charles up, figures him out, and puts him away in rounds 2, 3, or 4. Middle rounds at some point. I'm going to say a round 3 TKO for Max Holloway, official prediction. Charles will put up a fight, but get outclassed as the fight goes on, get damaged, run out of options, start shooting for desperate takedowns and trying to pull guard. Max will keep himself safe and invite Charles back to the feet. As the fight goes on and Charles is bloodied and gassed, he'll take longer and longer to get back up. Max will be emoting and pointing down and doing his thing, and I think Charles will wilt under the pressure and break in round 3. TKO, the best is blessed, baby, and still. But hopefully we get a decent scrap and nobody hurts their windpipe in this one. Max by round 3 TKO is the pick. By decision 50-45 wouldn't surprise me either. Let's punch on to the co-main event. Caio Borralho versus Reinier de Ridder. Man, I don't like having to predict this one. I am so mixed up emotionally about Reinier de Ridder right now. This guy is such an enigma. Comes over from where the fuck ever and just starts mogging everyone in the middleweight division. Fraud checks Bo Nickel, beats Bobby Knuckles and wins me 20 grand on a multi. What else was I to do but fall in love with this hunk of a man?
Why are you gay?
And then I lock him in for my first ever main event lock against Brendan Allen, and he breaks my heart with one of the most disappointing performances of all time. I am still scarred from that shit. The trust has been broken and it hasn't been repaired yet. I also picked Caio Borralho in his last fight against Nurgozhay, which is kind of dumb, but at least he put up a decent performance in that one against an elite guy. I was kind of trolling not picking a Mavov in that one, just trying to be a bit kooky and different. I knew all along that a Mavov was a better fighter. But come on, we all legitimately believed RDR to be leagues above Brendan Allen, and boy were we proved wrong. But I don't know, it was a strange performance that. RDR was dominating Allen in round 1, then just completely gassed out or got injured or something. I remember hearing some shit like he was having heart palpitations or something in that fight. Who knows? But in the end, he quit and broke against Brendan Allen, and that is not a good sign for his career. Now, this is a pretty interesting matchup. I didn't really expect him to make this matchup, but I guess it makes sense that they were both pretty hyped up guys with a bit of momentum. Both got checked right at the brink of the top 5, but both still have a bit of promise, and now they have to fight each other off a loss to decide who gets to have another crack at the title run. You got Caio Borralho, a fighting nerd, a pretty well-rounded guy with a bit of promise of some jiu-jitsu, but he seems to prefer the striking with a bit of a karate style. He honestly looked pretty one-dimensional and had a bit of low fight IQ against Nurgozhay. I thought he would have had a few more tricks up his sleeve, but he kind of just got outboxed and pieced up by Mavov and didn't really make any adjustments throughout the fight. RDR at least looked like he was winning against Allen and he was imposing his will in round 1. I wouldn't be surprised if he did get injured in there, but it kind of looks like he just gassed out and quit. I've really been back and forth on this one. Caio definitely has the cleanest striking. If this is a stand-up fight, I can see Caio being more technical over 3 rounds and winning on the cards. RDR is just so goofy and unorthodox with his striking, and he could surprise Caio, but I think he just misses a lot and he's there to be hit, and a guy like Caio, who isn't elite but he's good enough on the feet with pretty solid fundamentals, he could make RDR pay and put a bit of damage on him. But RDR is pretty crafty, bro. He's not afraid to get down and dirty and drag you into deep waters. He's a big, strong, physical guy, and he can impose his will, and he has a relentless pace that can make clean fighters very, very uncomfortable. We saw that against both Bo Nickel and Robert Whittaker. It's strange. De Ridder's gas tank looked pretty decent over 5 rounds against Whittaker, but then he seemed to only have 1 round of gas against Brendan Allen. It makes me think he was injured. Anyway, I don't know who wins this fight. I can see an argument for either guy. Head saying Borralho is the more skillful guy. Heart saying de Ridder just mogs him and manhandles him and uses his physicality to make it ugly, wins the clinch exchanges and takes Caio down and lays on him and does damage. You know what? I was going to go Caio, but the way he fought against Imavov pissed me off. He didn't make adjustments, didn't change his game plan, and didn't show a lot of urgency to win. Was too focused on being friendly and looking cool. At least RDR has a bit of mongrel in him, and we all have our bad days. I'm going to say RDR's performance against Allen was an outlier. He was overworked there. He'd been on an insane activity run and he paid the price. Now he's had about 6 months off. He's going to be ready and it's only 3 rounds. A bit less pressure and a decent matchup for him if he makes it his gritty, dirty style of fight. I think De Ridder can get it done. I think we get a slow-paced, grueling, damaging fight, a lot of clinching and wrestling from De Ridder. He disrupts Caio Borralho's karate, bouncy style. Maybe Caio lands some good shots, but I don't reckon he'll be able to get into his striking rhythm. He'll be constantly trying to get De Ridder off him and find some space in the cage. But De Ridder is going to be persistent. He'll get a takedown every round, and I reckon he beats Caio up a bit, but not too much. I reckon he focuses on control, uses his size to dominate positions, and maybe hunt for submissions. I could see Caio win a round, maybe another is close, but I reckon Reinier de Ridder takes this one on the cards, 29-28. Looks shit like he always does. They both are going to look shit, but I reckon RDR will be back in the mix by the skin of his teeth. I'll be staying well away from this one on the betting though, I reckon. Too many variables. I don't know how either guy's going to look or bounce back from their first big losses in the UFC. It should be a compelling fight though. De Ridder, by decision, tough performance, not confident at all on this one. Let's just keep cooking. Feature fight, Raul Rosas Jr. versus Rob Font. Yeah, as I said, I don't really understand why this is on this card and it wasn't on last weekend's card. It would have been a good co-main for last weekend or even main event, to be honest. Guess this card was just looking a bit too weak, so they needed some name value on it. I get it. I reckon this fight would have been a perfect fight to open up the card here. Instead, though, we get it as the feature fight. Honestly, I'm never that excited for a Rob Font fight. Chiwiwis is all right, but I'm still waiting for a big breakout performance from him to decide if he's legit or not. A win over Rob Font could give him what he needs here, but I'd like to see him dominate Font. Font is no slouch, but he's old, he's taken plenty of damage, he's in the twilight phase of his career, and he's coming off a pretty dominant ass whooping to David Martinez, who really only just scraped by Chito Vera last weekend. Font's tough, a lot of his fights go the distance, even his last one where he nearly got finished, he still hung in there. I think he's pretty cooked though, bro. He's 38 years old at bantamweight, and he's taken on this young bull, Raul Rosas Jr., who's 21, coming into his prime, pretty massive and strong for bantamweight, hungry to make a name for himself, and the UFC has set him up to do so here on the main card of a big numbered event. I think this is Raul Rosas Jr.'s fight to lose. Rob Font is going to get taken down in round 1, probably again in round 2, and again in round 3, and I don't think he's going to be able to get back up at all. So to me, it's just a matter of how long does it take Chiwiwis to take him down? Probably not long. And then does Font survive the submission attempts or does he tap? Font has only been submitted once before by, I think, guillotine choke to Pedro Munoz. Honestly though, I could see him tapping out here too. It's 3 rounds. Font is pretty crafty, but there's only so long you can be on your back with Raul Rosas Jr. hunting for your neck and limbs before something's got to give. I could honestly see a Rosas Jr. TKO here as well. So look, I'm going to say not exactly sure how Chiwiwis gets it done, but I'm very confident that he does, and we get a passing of the torch moment here. Font's just too old to keep up with his gatekeeping ways. I think he gets beaten up badly here by Raul Rosas Jr. We get a big on the mic, and all of a sudden Raul Rosas Jr. is ranked inside the top 15. Looking up the rankings to a fight with maybe like a Marlon Vera or a Davison Figueiredo. So I'm going to lock in Raul Rosas Jr. Betting wise, I'd probably just go with money line, but for the purposes of the video and the prediction, I'm going to say Rosas Jr. gets a submission. I'll say round 2 rear naked choke after beating Font up for a bit. We're locking in Chiwiwis. Drew Dober versus Michael Johnson. I'm a big dog, big bet. This fight's going to go hard as fuck, bro. In what universe is this going to not be a banger? I think the UFC knew what they were doing putting this one together. Drew Dober is always in fun fights. He was in one of the sickest one-round wars of all time. Go watch my one-round wars video if you haven't already. I'll put that shit in the description. We're talking Dober versus McKinney, and I wouldn't be surprised if we got an epic 1 or 2 round slugfest in this one too. Michael Johnson is that guy. Unk still got it. But does he? People were like, oh shit, when he beat up Daniel Zellhuber. But as we saw last weekend, Daniel Zellhuber is one of the most pathetic, unskilled, low IQ and awful fighters in the UFC right now. So it's no surprise whatsoever that Uncle Mike absolutely schooled him. Mike's been beating up a whole lot of jobbers lately. His recent wins are Zellhuber, Otman Azaitar, Darius Flowers, Mark Jacasey, Alan Patrick. Yeesh, none of these guys are good whatsoever. So look, it is actually pretty hard to say if Unk really do still got it. I guess we'll find out this weekend because Drew Dober ain't no joke at all, especially against the brothers, if you know what I mean. Racially motivated Dober is one of the most legendary mythical fighters in UFC history, and here he is back in his old stomping ground. I'm gonna have to go with Drew Dober, bro. I picked him to beat Kyle Prepolek. He had a bit of trouble, but he ended up finishing him in nasty fashion. I think Dober has proven to have a decent chin, despite kind of being also chinny at the same time. He always gets rocked in fights, but he's got a good ability to stay in the fight and come back. Uncle Mike has been finished a few times lately too. So look, it's tough to know how this one's going to go. Honestly, a complete wild card fight. Anything could happen. I'm legit just basing this prediction on the fact that Dober likes to beat up black guys. It'd probably be a decent one to coin flip, but there's some other pus fights down the card that I need the coin flip for this week. So I'm going to go with the big dog, big bear, Drew Dober to win an entertaining fight by round 3 TKO. Could go the distance somehow too, but yeah, nobody's getting subbed in this one. Blood's going to be spilled, teeth will fly, there'll be nut shots, eye pokes, complete chaos all round, and I think Dober gets wobbled but hangs in there and outlasts Michael Johnson and gets him out of there with an uppercut or a big overhand and an accumulation of damage. I'll say round 2 or 3 TKO for Drew Dober. Can't wait for this one though. Should be absolute cinema. Another one that should be a fucking slobber knocker. RoboCop versus the Hulk definitely belongs on the BMF card. Gregory Rodrigues versus Brunno Ferreira. These guys are going to take years off each other's lives. I can't wait for this one either. I'm locked in for every RoboCop fight, and Brunno Ferreira is low-key making me a fan lately too. Both guys, especially Ferreira, are dumb as dog shit, but they got iron chins and they swing every punch with finishing intent. Well, RoboCop does anyway. Ferreira doesn't mind mixing in a bit of volume and technique either, but lad can absolutely swang and bang when he wants to. Just because he couldn't knock out Marvin Vettori doesn't mean he doesn't have power. A fucking wrecking ball to the chin couldn't sit down Marvin Vettori. Brunno, he's on a pretty decent 3-win streak. Nothing too special though. He beat Armin Petrosian, Jackson McVeigh, who sucks, and Marvin Vettori, who unfortunately also sucks, but is just an unfinishable zombie. RoboCop has looked a bit more impressive in his recent run. Outside of his TKO loss to Jared Cannonier, he's beaten up Brad Tavares, Christian Leroy Duncan, which has aged pretty well, Roman Kopylov, and that filthy KO win over Jack Hermanson. Rest his soul. I think this one's set up for madness and mayhem as well. RoboCop's going to crash forward and he'd be looking to get Ferreira out of there from minute 1. But Ferreira got a chin too, bro, and even though he's not got as much power as RoboCop, he's still dangerous and he probably has a few more tricks up his sleeve and a bit more of a technical striking game. I can't not pick RoboCop though, bro. This man is juiced to the gills, shredded as fuck, strong, fast, he hunts for a finish at all times in the fight, and it's just a matter of time before he lands some nasty shit on you. I think it's going to be a tough fight. Both guys will hurt each other, but I reckon RoboCop's damage will be more devastating, and he'll eventually be able to get Brunno Ferreira out of there in late round 1 or 2. Could maybe see Ferreira toughen it out to a decision. In that case, it could go either way, but the safe pick here is always going to be Gregory ObamaCop Rodrigues by TKO. If it's not that, I'm usually pretty surprised. It should be a slapper this one though. I'm keen to see some fists fly. We got RoboCop by TKO or points. All right, we're going to fire off the prelim quick picks. Not a ton of research and tape study done here, but you're not here to hear me break down the outside foot battle of Cody Durden versus Nyamjagal Tumendemberel. So let's punch on with these quickly. Cody Garbrandt versus Xiao Long. Cody has officially reached Unk status. Back in his prime, I reckon he completely dominates this Long Xiao bloke. But in today's world, in big 2026, I can't feel confident picking Cody Garbrandt. Maybe the UFC has served him up a win on a platter here. I think a lot of people are picking Cody and he is the favourite. But I'm going to go with Long Xiao by decision. I think he'll be a bit too quick and powerful, and Cody just won't have what he needs to get this one done. Risky pick, but I've got a few on this card. Fuck it, you got to risk it for the biscuit. Long Xiao by 29-28 decision. He could also just chin Cody Garbrandt. That wouldn't surprise me. Dante Johnson versus Cody Brundage. Jonte Dodson is back, bro. This guy is a problem. He was supposed to be fighting Duško Todorovic here, but Duško wisely pulled out, and the absolute raid boss, Cody Brundage, has stepped in for his monthly ass whooping after getting mollywopped by the battle giraffe himself, Cam Rouston, over here in Sydney. Brundage, we know he's a dog, but he loses to anyone who's decent. and I think Deontay Johnson is more than decent. He looked like a complete savage in his last couple of fights. I don't see a sensible world where Cody Brundage beats Deontay Johnson with the way both of these guys have been looking lately. If Cody Brundage wins this, the UFC just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But hey, Jordan Levitt just fucking schooled Yadier Del Valle, so what the fuck do I know? Nah, look, this one's a hard lock, boys. Brundage is just showing up for his paycheck. He's going to get finished by Deontay Johnson in round 1 or 2. I'll say TKO, but Dante showed off he's got a submission game against Cedric Dumas in his last fight. I reckon Brundage just gets chinned, curls up into a ball and gets TKO'd. Pretty confident here. This one's going in the parlay for sure. Deontay Johnson, this guy is a problem and he's going to knock out Cody Brundage easily. Chuck a lock on it. Mark my words, this one's going to be over quickly. Ricky Turcios versus Alberto Montes. Not going to lie, boys, I don't really know a lot about Alberto Montes, only that he's a bit of a submission guy and he's come through the contender series. I don't rate Turcios really at all, but he is tough and he can be difficult for guys to finish. He's a scrappy dude. He'll hold his own. Wouldn't shatter my reality if Turcios won this, but I'll go with the favoured guy in Alberto Montes. He could submit Ricky Turcios, but I reckon Ricky's a bit too tough. He's got crackhead strength. Just look at him. I'm going to say Montes wins by a competitive close decision, maybe a split. Maybe not. Cody Durden versus Nurgozhay Tumendemberel. Durden looked pretty out of his league in his last few to me. He looks a bit washed, unfortunately. He seems like a nice guy, but at almost 35 years of age at flyweight, this division's moving on without him. Tumendemberel, I don't think he's anything flash either. He keeps having cancelled fights and he lost to Carlos Hernandez in his one UFC bout. Carlos Hernandez just sounds like some Latino NPC. I have legit no idea who that guy is. As a diehard UFC fan with a dedicated YouTube channel, never heard of Carlos Hernandez. Anyway, hard to forget the name Nurgozhay Tumendemberel. I'm going to back him to win this by finish. I'll say submission. Durden's neck is there to be snatched. This bloke's got a ton of rear naked chokes. I reckon he gets a club and sub on Durden. After Durden looks good at the start of the fight, maybe he wins a round, then he just makes a mistake, gets dropped, and Tumendemberel gets his back and chokes him out for the win. We'll go Nurgozhay by submission. Sumuraerji versus Jesus Aguilar. See, I'm not too sure about this one either. Aguilar has surprised me with his performances. For a 5-foot guy, he's actually pretty decent and he's had a bit of success in the UFC. Sumuraerji is a weight bully at flyweight. Bro is 5'8" with a 72-inch reach. That's longer than some lightweights. Justin Gaethje. That's fucking nasty reach for a flyweight, not gonna lie. And he used it well against Kevin Borjas, I think it was. But look, Aguilar is an explosive guy. He's able to get into the pocket, impose his will, and get takedowns too. He's got some solid grappling, and Sumuraerji has lost a fair bit by submission in his career. If Aguilar can't get him down and he's forced to box, I reckon Sumuraerji pieces him up over 3 rounds like he did to Borjas. But I'm going to trust in Jesus Aguilar to get inside his range, push him against the cage, take him down, and submit him by arm triangle or guillotine or maybe just a rear naked. Or perhaps he just dominates him for at least a couple of rounds and wins a decision. So I'm going to say a ground-based victory for Jesus Aguilar. Sue will be better on the feet as long as it's there, but I reckon Jesus will get it done. Rafael Tobias versus Dr. Nurgozhay. Not a single human being in the world even knew this fight was on. Nobody cares about this fight. These guys are bums. Rafael Tobias could be decent, but who fucking knows? The level of competition he's faced is absolutely nothing. Dr. Nurgozhay got his ass kicked by Brenderson Hiberio and Uran Salty Bordiev. Yeah, I'm not researching this fight, boys. We're flipping the coin on this one. I'm going to let fate decide on it because I don't give a fuck or know who the fuck wins this. Let's flip the coin. Here we are, boys, with the coin flip for this week. Heads is going to be Rafael Tobias. Tails will be Dr. Nurgozhay. Let's spin this thing. We're going with heads this week, so we've got Rafael Tobias as the pick. He's going to win by KO in the first round, brutally and in nasty fashion. We're going Rafael Tobias. And we got Zhong Yong Lee versus Gaston Bolanos. The UFC has tried to bamboozle us here, boys. I swear Gaston Bolanos was originally fighting Ju Sang Yu, but the UFC's just switched him out on late notice for another Korean dude and just hoped we wouldn't even realise. Now Zhong Yong Lee steps in on short notice and for some reason everyone's picking Zhong Yong Lee. I reckon people are sleeping on Gaston Bolanos here. He's actually pretty decent, even though his 8-5 record says otherwise. He's only lost to decent guys in the UFC, Marcus McGee and Quang Lee, whereas Zhong Yong Lee got beat up by Hyder Emil and Daniel Santos. Both of those guys are okay as well, I guess. The only thing that I'm not sure about is I think Gaston Bolanos is originally like a bantamweight, and it looks like he's fighting up at featherweight here, so that could be a bit of a problem. It's a bit of a toss-up fight, but look, with Bolanos having had a full camp and been in a bit more of a desperate position, I'm going to give him a crack as an underdog. I reckon he lands on the Korean bloke's glass jaw and chins him in round 1 or 2. Fingers crossed, this one's a brave pick. Luke Fernandez versus Rodolfo Bellato. Man, Bellato's career has been so whack lately. His last couple of fights have been win, draw, no contest, loss. So I'm completely convinced this fight's going to end up as a DQ or something retarded. I'll say Luke Fernandez wins because Rodolfo Bellato headbutts him in the dick or something crazy, or like bites his ear or something. Something fucked up is bound to happen in a Rodolfo Bellato fight. Also, he's shit, so he's going to lose. Realistically, probably by KO. Even though he looked okay against Navajo Sterling, he still found a way to lose. I reckon he gets rocked and put away by Fernandez and the UFC cuts his ass. Hopefully, anyway. Righto, boys, time to zip through the punch Ons parlay. I've got a 4-legger for you this week. We hit last week. I'm frothing that. Not the most crazy multi in the world, but it was nice to see some green ticks come up. This week, the 4-legger, the first leg's going to be Gaston Bolanos. As I said, bit of a roughie here to start things off. I just got a bit of a feeling about Gaston. Now, if you were going to leave a leg out, you could probably leave this one out. He is coming up to featherweight. He's not a big dude, but I just got a weird feeling that Bolanos is going to lock in and get this one done and chin this bloody Korean glass jaw rat. So I don't know how he's going to do it. We'll go maybe KO, but we'll just chuck him on win. That's still pretty decent odds. Next leg, we got Dante Johnson. Look at this fucking chat of a man. He's going to win this fight. I reckon he's going to get a finish over Cody Brundage. I doubt Cody Brundage lasts the distance. So we're going to go double chance, Dante Johnson, KO or submission. Then we got the third leg is Raul Rosas Jr. Chiwiwis. He's going to win. Look, you could chuck it in as just a money line if you wanted. I've got a feeling he's going to win by submission. He could get a KO. I think KO is probably the least likely outcome here. So, look, I'm going to be a bit risky. I'm going to do a double chance submission or decision. Rob Font's pretty tough. He could last it out, but if he is going to get finished, I reckon it'll be by submission. And finally, we're going to find out Saturday night, baby. We got Max Blessed Holloway. Confident main event pick this week. Hard picking against Charles Oliveira. Didn't go well for me last time against Garbrandt, but look, I'm feeling pretty good about Max Holloway here. He is the BMF of the UFC. I think this is a good stylistic matchup for him, and I don't see him submitting Charles Oliveira, so we can pretty confidently put on a double chance KO or decision for Max Blessed Holloway. So there's your 4-legger. Gaston Bolanos, Dante Johnson, Raul Rosas Jr, and Max Blessed Holloway. So there's the full card of picks for UFC 326, boys, the BMF card. I hope it's a banger. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you get a few picks yourself this weekend and get a tasty little multi if you are cooking up some bets. Make sure you like the video this week, fellas. I try to put a bit more energy and a bit more effort into this one. Give us a sub while you're there. We're still working towards that 250 goal for this year, so make sure you subscribe if you haven't, because most of you blokes haven't. Give us a little squeeze on Instagram too, boys. We're posting some content on there. And yeah, just jump down and tell us what type of videos I should be making. Comment below who you reckon's going to win. Are you hyped about this card? Anything you want to say, boys. Even if you want to tell me I sound like a fuckwit, just jump down there. It helps the channel. I'll see you fellas on the next fucking balls up of a video. Punch on.